Thank you for joining us today. I am not Dr. Jaleel Hart. My name is Terry Conrad, and I am the Deputy Director of K-12 at the Hunt Institute. And I'm so excited that you have joined us for the latest installment of the Homeroom with Education Leaders webinar series. Today's topic is Ready for the Real World, How States Can Enable Career Education. For those of you that are unfamiliar, the Institute was founded by four-term North Carolina Governor Jim Hunt and serves as a nonpartisan resource for policymakers across the country. We work across the prenatal to post-secondary spectrum by hosting convenings, providing technical assistance, and producing research to improve education systems nationwide. Before we dive into our discussion, just a quick note on logistics. We will begin with a moderated panel discussion and then open the floor to Q&A. You can submit questions at any time using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll go ahead and answer those at the end when those start coming in. So we are recording today's conversation and we'll post it to our YouTube channel in the upcoming days for those of you who'd like to revisit and share it. You can also join in this conversation on social media using the hashtag #EdHomeroom. So we're excited to get started with our conversation today. I'm honored to be joined by three distinguished resource experts. We have Steve DeWitt, the Deputy Executive Director for the Association for Career and Technical Education. We have Troy Smith, the Executive Director of K-12 Policy at College Board, and Diana Rothschild, the Vice President of Strategic Reach and Workforce Partnerships at College Board. Thank you so much for being here. So we're going to jump right in and get to the experts and not to me. So first, Diana, we're going to start with you. We know families and employers alike are calling for more real-world learning in high school. Can you share more about College Board's new Career Kickstart AP initiative and how it addresses that call?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm curious, I'd love to start with just a little bit more interactivity with the folks on our webinar to make sure that we're really answering your questions and hitting on the things that matter most to you. So I'd love to just dive in with a very quick poll, which I think is going to show up. First question is, how familiar are you with College Board's Career Kickstart courses? Scale of 1 to 5. Second question is, in your role, how critical is enabling career relevant education for high school students? So how critical is this focus area in high schools? And then third, in your role today, what is the single greatest barrier that you face with implementing and scaling high quality career education? And we've given you a few options, specifically 5 options, and then a nice other bucket. Is it mostly limited industry employer partnerships? Is it lack of access to qualified educators? Is it lack of clarity regarding high quality CTE options? An inability to accurately assess skills, or a lack of funding to support career and technical education? Obviously, all of these are needed, but we're curious around what the single greatest barrier that you see. Dr. Conrad, when do you think we'll be at a good, we're at almost 70% participation. So we'll give it another 20
I'd say
seconds or
maybe, yeah,
so.
20 seconds should be good.
Great.
Really appreciate everybody jumping in there and clicking on there. We got some good feedback. All right, we'll go ahead and end that poll so we can share those results.
Okay, great. So the results, like it looks like most of most of you are not familiar at all with what we're doing. So that's actually great because I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes what we're doing. Um, it looks like in your role, it's pretty critical, right, to enable career relevant education for high school students. I would agree. And I'm personally selfishly grateful for this because my oldest daughter is going into high school next year and or in a few weeks, and I'm excited that she is hopefully going to have these opportunities for her. And it looks like in your role, when you think about the biggest barrier with implementing this in a good way, it looks like a lack of funding, other, which is always a wonderful one because it's hard to know what's in there. And then kind of a little bit of lack of clarity and limited industry employer partnership. So I think what this is showing me is if I created a pie chart here, there's a lot of big slices, right? There's not one silver bullet, which I think in talking to Steve and Troy, by the end of this conversation, we will all be in agreement that there is no one silver bullet, but that we need help in sort of all of these ways to make this work. So this is great. So I would love to just start by walking you all through at a very high level what we are doing at College Board and why we're super excited about this as kind of the next frontier. So if you want to go to the next slide, we didn't really ask the question in the poll of um, yeah, if you keep going to one more slide down, of how much do people know what College Board is? So I'm just going to answer that up front here. So College Board is a 125-year-old nonprofit. We have several products, which you can see across the screen, everything from PSAT and SAT to advanced placement, AP, which is what we'll be talking about today. Big Future, which is our marketplace that helps connect students to colleges and higher ed institutions, and CLEP and AccuPlacer, which support community colleges. We interact with over 7 million students annually. 90% of high school students in this country have access to AP, and approximately 34% of students take an AP course, which is great, but that also means that 65% aren't getting that opportunity or aren't taking advantage of that opportunity. And we have a lot of data showing that even if you take just one AP course, it greatly changes your trajectory of your future, of what you're able to achieve and what you are able to accomplish in the future. We're a membership-based nonprofit with over 6,000 education partners, and every year we save families, parents, and students $3 billion through the academic credit, college credit that AP provides for students, which is pretty incredible. So if we go to the next slide, it's interesting. There's kind of a disconnect, right, between education and employability. So education needs to be obviously educating and needs to keep pace with the skills that are needed in a really rapidly changing labor market. And that's been harder and harder to do as the pace of change has increased, as technology has changed. Education needs to almost be two steps ahead of that, and that has become increasingly more difficult. When you talk to employers, I'm sure you know this, like employers are spending more and more money on hiring and learning and development, but they're not seeing as much return. What they're noticing is longer recruitment cycles and the need to train unqualified hires, which just makes the onboarding process of employees and the investment in them even longer. And then talent is not really able to identify themselves as being able that they know those skills, right? So even though almost 60% of high school seniors today are not going to four-year colleges, employers don't really trust the credentials or the signals that those employees are coming in with, and they end up retraining those employees, which just adds more time and more cost. And so at College Board, we created advanced placement 70 years ago to help higher ed universities and colleges really get a reliable, national, reliable understanding of what a student knows so that they could be able to take students from all states to their college and know what those students know through high school credit and also college credit. We have been looking at some labor market information data, wage data, and really understanding where are there demand gaps? Where are there jobs out there that are not being filled that could be filled from entry level talent, or where the skill sets gained in high school could really help that student get down a pathway much faster. And so we have been working on designing AP Career Kickstart. So this is a new part of AP. We have 40 AP courses today. We are now at this point have three more courses: AP Cybersecurity, AP Cyber Networking, and AP Business with Personal Finance. These courses they are AP courses, they are college level, they are quite rigorous, but they offer high school credit, college credit, and then new, which my team is focused on, they also are going to bring with them industry recognized credentials. So if one of those 57% of students is not going on to college right away, they have a credential that they can take with them on their resume, on their LinkedIn into the job market. And if they choose to use it in college, that helps them when they graduate from college as well. So it's not college or career. College is a path to career. And so there's multiple ways that students can access this. If we go to the next slide, I want to share high level a little bit about the cyber security, cyber networking, and business with personal finance courses. So if we start with AP Business with Personal Finance, this course is really helpful for students to learn the basics, the basic building principles of business. So it's project-based learning. Students are actually building their own business plan for a business that they want to start. And then they are using every unit in the course, whether it's a unit on marketing, on HR, on accounting, on finance, on operations and supply chain to go back and hone their business plan and pitch that plan to more and more advisors and experts. We also have a personal finance unit, and the personal finance unit is several months long, and it really teaches students how to advise on financial decisions like loans, insurance, home ownership, credit, and retirement planning. So it really helps them get a handle on like what is compounded interest and why does that matter and what is a 401k and how should I think about insurance. And it also aligns with the national standards for personal finance education and economic education as well. If we go to the next slide, in addition to these courses this course offering sort of very hard skills in business, we also know that those durable skills are really critical to employers. So they're called durable skills. They're also called non-cognitive skills. They also get the name of soft skills, but they're not soft in any way. They're really around like, how do I communicate? How do I collaborate? How do I make decisions? How do I learn to prioritize? How do I bring in a sense of entrepreneurship of identifying a new opportunity, testing, iterating, and developing a new idea? And then how do I apply those concepts? And so as we've talked to employers, as much as the hard skills are needed, these skills are just as important, honestly, if not more important. And so these courses cover these skills as well. If we can move on to the next slide, thank you. So in terms of AP cybersecurity and AP networking, these are each 1 year long courses. AP cybersecurity is launching in 26, 27. AP networking will be launching in 27, 28 officially. These courses are being pilot tested in the field in several hundred schools this past year and several hundred schools this coming school year in advance of them going live in 26, 27. But AP cybersecurity is very focused on helping students really understand and learn how to defend vulnerabilities on networks and computers, really understand what are the security controls that are needed to mitigate risks, starting in like physical space down to networks, devices, data, and apps, and really understand the risks posed by those vulnerabilities. And then the AP networking course, which is launching, as I said, in 27, 28, really helps students learn how to configure, troubleshoot, and secure networks, really understand how networks work together with each other, and how to monitor and protect the transmission of data both within a network and between networks, as we know that this world is very interconnected. If we can move on to the next slide. When we talk about project-based learning in these courses, we really want our students to learn not just like this is how to fix the code and this is how to do a penetration test, but what does career exploration look like? Where does cyber show up, for example, in everyday life? And so we have in this slide gives sort of three examples of where and how students can start to see that cybersecurity is everywhere, right? Whether you're in a hospital, on a naval submarine, or you are working on a farm, making sure that all the equipment is working in the right way and the water doesn't just get shut off randomly. And so students are really learning by doing and really opening their minds to what they could do with something as interesting as cybersecurity. If you go to the next slide, what we want to show here is that these courses We are looking to get industry recognized credentials in each state for each of these three courses. These industry recognized credentials, so that's what IRC stands for. These will be stackable. So you can take these and have these, and then from there, if you want to go deeper with CompTIA, or with these are some examples of other cyber IRCs, you can definitely do that. Our current alignment with CompTIA in the cyber course is 92% alignment. So there's a lot of overlap with what we're teaching at the high school level and what these CompTIA and other courses are teaching. And we actually have a partnership with CompTIA that allows students to get a voucher in the absence of the past 2 years where our course is not officially live. And so students who have taken the exams in May are able to get a voucher already for free, paid for through our partnership with CompTIA, because there is so much overlap. So we want to make sure that the gap between what's valuable and attainable is as small, if not in an existence. And we're doing that through making sure that these are stackable. So as we go to the next slide, and this is my second to last slide, as we look to get industry recognized credentials, we need industry, so employers, to recognize these courses, right? To recognize the importance of these courses. And so we are partnering with industry leading companies, regional and state employers, chambers of commerce, workforce development intermediaries, higher ed institutions, in a few ways. So one way is to really review and advise on our frameworks. These courses are a chance for business and industry to have a say in high school education in a way that they've really never had before. It's pretty incredible. And so we have employers that have been working with us on the design of these courses and also on the design of the assessment that is given every May. We are also partnering with companies to make sure that that these courses are teaching the right skills, right? The right in-demand skills that are needed right now. And we're partnering with these companies to connect students to opportunity, whether that's work-based learning opportunities, whether that's mentoring. There are many opportunities that students can have to learn about a day in the life of working in companies and working in very different industries and careers that they might not have ever thought of. And so employer partners that we've been working with over the past several months have been very excited and interested in sharing what is possible for students, which I think is a great opportunity for high school students. So if we go to the very last slide, and we might also pop this slide up at the end of the webinar once so we can see more of our faces. If you want to learn more, please please use your camera to project onto this QR code. It will take you to our industry landing page where you can just fill out your name and email, and that will give us the chance to know that you're interested in learning more or partnering with us in some way. And then we would be very happy to be in touch. If you would prefer not to use a QR code, you can also email us at SRWP, Strategic Reach Workforce Partnerships. We call ourselves SIRUP on the team internally at collegeboard.org. So I will pass it back to you, but just wanted to share a little bit about these courses and happy to take any questions about them as we go to the Q&A section towards the end of our time together.
Diana, thank you so much. I loved hearing the idea of, blending college and career, not having those be these separate silos for kids and really working on developing their skills. And Troy, that seems like you got to have really good systems and policy in place at the state level in order to make that actually happen. So talk to me about what you think states need to be thinking about as they're trying to support these offerings for kids.
Thanks, Terry. Hey, everybody. Troy Smith. I'm here to represent the policy nerd perspective. So first, I think I would acknowledge there's been a real groundswell of support and renewed interest in career education and workforce development. Folks on this call probably know this work's very important. It's been happening forever, but it feels like this is a real inflection point. It feels like there's a ton of interest and energy behind this work that's building to help it reach even more students. All that to say that it feels like right now is a real time to affect some change. We've already seen some change legislatively, and it's a lot of action that's coming out of states to think differently about how they're structuring and they're incentivizing career education and participation. So some ideas that come to mind. I think at the outset, I think establishing a compelling narrative feels incredibly important, really important to have a clear vision for this work and what you're hoping to accomplish. So states should consider what exactly do they want a student to accomplish? When we say workforce preparation, what does it practically mean? What do we want graduates to be accomplishing? And so many states have already taken a big step in this direction, speaking of durable skills, through portraits of a graduate or similar frameworks that have really clearly articulated why the why at the state level, why they're engaging in this work and what they want students to ultimately accomplish. So it's worth considering how this type of coursework and others like it can directly complement, I think, the work that's already in progress and the missions that states are already naming for their different constituencies. On the policy front, my first thought is that states, I think, would do well to pause and step back and take stock of their current systems and consider how they can make tweaks to those existing systems to promote both advanced coursework and CTE participation, to place those students who are taking both on equal footing and provide schools and students with greater choice and options for satisfying state policy. So, for example, one thing that we've seen quite a bit in recent years is a revisiting of graduation requirements to break down silos and expose students to both advanced coursework and career technical education, or in the case of Career Kickstart, both. So, for example, I feel like every time we talk career education, Indiana comes up. Shout out Indiana. But with Indiana's latest graduation requirements refresh, every student is expected to demonstrate post-secondary readiness, which AP is an example metric, but they also have to demonstrate employability skills, a capstone project, a service learning, work-based learning experience. Students can also earn stackable diploma seals through both earning credentials of value like an IRC or successfully completing advanced coursework like AP. I'll say Rhode Island has also done some similar work, I think, to build in readiness evidence into its grad requirements that, again, allows you to do it via AP success, IRC attainment, college credit, et cetera. So thinking differently around graduation requirements and allowing students to use different pathways to meet those requirements. Another area I would say is that states might consider making adjustments to their accountability systems to allow both advanced coursework like AP and the earning of industry recognized credentials to contribute to a school's overall score. So I've been doing some work in Colorado. They had a bill, HB 1278, which basically redefined its post-secondary workforce indicator and its accountability system. It now includes both post-secondary credit, industry recognized credentials, and work-based learning experiences. They also have a new matriculation indicator that includes college, military, but it also includes completing an apprenticeship or a CTE program. So thinking of that example and the Indiana example previously, you can think about there could potentially be some efficiencies created. An AP Career Kickstart course would help meet multiple requirements, freeing up room and schedules, and again, contributing to an accountability system as well as graduation requirements. I think last thing I would say is I think it's worth considering what financial incentives could complement these grad requirement accountability levers. For example, creating weighted funding systems or bonuses to encourage participation and success in both advanced coursework and CTE participation, reducing friction by covering certain costs like AP exam fees. We've seen some states undergo work like that. Actually, one more thing I would say is just I would encourage states thinking about this kind of work to keep an eye out for low-hanging fruit that might create potholes, create friction. For example, it's important that these courses and ones like them are able to sit in CTE programs of study, receive access to the same funding and benefits of other courses. So it's worth pausing and thinking about what are the small things that you want to make sure aren't going to hold things up. Those boxes are ticked so these courses can launch successfully.
Great, that's really helpful information. I know we'll circle back about some other policy opportunities soon. But I want to kick this over to Steve and see, Troy just told us, this feels like a good inflection point. So, we see workforce development as a bipartisan priority. Why do you think aligning CTE with AP or other advanced coursework supports workforce preparation? And why is this the right moment to do it?
Sure. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. I have seen such a change over the course of the last 15 or 20 years as I've worked in this space. And I think to hear the acknowledgement that Democrats and Republicans both support this is real, and it's been a long time coming. So that's a discussion for another day, but I want to commend the College Board. I think what they're doing in terms of rigorous academic coursework with the high demands in career fields and bringing those together is really what high quality career and technical education looks like in our programs of study. So if you look at the Perkins 5 legislation, which comes from the federal level, it really sets the blueprint for how career and technical programs are implemented around the US. And it talks in that definition about incorporating challenging state academic standards. It talks about addressing academic, technical, and employability skills, yet another term for the durable skills. And it talks about alignment with the needs of industry and the economy, and the culmination in an attainment of a recognized industry credential or post-secondary credential. And that's exactly what their programming is doing. So I think another issue that's important in this discussion is that historically we've had this competition in schools where many students have had to choose either between a CTE course or an AP course. And so this kind of alleviates that barrier, which is terrific for students to really be able to have both the connection to career tech programs, which are oftentimes engaging them and really helping them to move forward in their career pathway, and also have that academic credit. One of the things I couldn't help but think about is kind of the misperceptions that we're kind of dispelling as we're talking about this issue. If we look at our high school students who are going through these pathways, our CTE students who are taking 2 or more courses in career and technical education, 96% of them graduate high school and most enroll directly in college. And so they're going on to obtain, yes, sometimes short-term certifications and licensure, but also associate degrees, bachelor's degrees, and higher degrees. And the average rate of graduation for CTE concentrators, those who take 2 or more courses, is 94% compared to the national rate of 85%. So like Diana said, we need to stop asking, is it CTE or academic education? It's really both. And I think we're seeing that happen today. And this is yet another tool in the tool shed. So just want to commend the College Board again for that.
Love that. Thank you so much. And I see we've got quite a few questions in the Q&A, so I want to make sure we get to that. So I want to kick it back to Diana for a second. What industry, I know you want to find out what industries and regions of our people who are listening here on our webinar, they think would benefit most from expanded career education. So if you want to engage with the chat for a minute, I think that'd be this would be a great time for that.
Yes. So yeah, if you can add in the chat what industry in your area would most benefit from career education. I also think I was noticing, Dr. Conrad, that in the Q&A, one of the very first questions asked was how are you identifying which industry is going to be offered, which is a question from Lynn, and it's very timely with what you just asked me. So I thought we would just go there. So we have taken a look at a lot of labor market information to really understand kind of 2 things: the intersection of where are the biggest gaps in job demand today. So where are there jobs that are not getting filled? And where are those jobs well paying, right? So well north of a living wage. And it's interesting, and it totally makes sense that the areas that we found really align with industries that are growing rapidly, right? And almost more rapidly than we can handle. So cybersecurity was really one of those first areas where there are millions of jobs that are literally not getting filled today at an entry level. So the demand is there, but the skills haven't been given to students in a way that allow them to be qualified to apply for those roles. Other areas, business is just a common thing, right? We all need to know business. And I think 29, or I think it's 29, Troy, you're the policy expert here, so you have the exact number, but several states have personal finance requirements now, right? We're all learning that if we are not able to understand how to save and manage our money effectively, it really impacts a lot of other areas of our lives and our careers. And so knowing that was needed, business was sort of a very basic start. So we started with cybersecurity and business. We are looking at many other areas. So healthcare is obviously a huge growing area. So that is something that will be coming in the future. If you think about our business course right now as a very business 101 business principles, there obviously, like, there could be a course in sales, there could be a course in marketing, there could be a course in finance, operations, supply chain. So there are sort of we could take every vertical function in a business, which would really help employers looking to hire in those particular areas. But welcome what people have in want to add in the chat of like which industry suggestions you see, because as we start thinking about how we go beyond these 3 courses, it takes a long time to develop these courses, just so everyone knows, and to develop the assessments in a way that they have high efficacy and high reliability for employers all around the world. And so to do that and to getting your suggestions now helps us be able to create those, add those to our list and do all of our analysis from there.
Great, thank you. So as people are putting in any suggestions in the chat, Troy, I'd love to kick it back to you and just see, what do you see as the greatest state level policy opportunities that are ahead? I know you're out there going to a lot of different states. What's College Board seeing as ways that states might be able to push things forward?
Yeah, in addition to what I mentioned earlier, I'd say my work and the work of my team is really focused on kind of 4 main buckets of policy right now that I think might offer the best opportunity, but also potentially the greatest barriers to this type of coursework being successful. I'd say the first is around state and federal CTE funding. We recognize that our courses, I mean, Steve is getting at this a little bit, but our courses are a little bit of a unicorn. They're AP courses, but they also sit in CTE programs of study. And so working hard to clarify with states what it would take to ensure that schools who are adding these courses can expect to have access to the benefits associated with AP, associated with CTE, so they can have greater flexibility and choice in how they're applying the funding and resources available, which we know I think is especially important given, I think, constrained budgets districts and states are currently facing. A similar topic, and one that is admittedly kind of my pet project, is thinking about teacher certification. And providing more streamlined pathways for current teachers to teach these courses, even if they sit in CTE pathways. So not sure who all is on the call, but many of you may be familiar that endorsement requirements for current teachers to teach new subject areas vary a lot by state. And they often, though not always, tend to be more stringent for CTE courses. So you have to have a certain industry credential, you have to have hundreds or thousands of hours of industry experience. Which of course, for some courses is totally appropriate in the CTE space. But we also know that teacher shortages are a big issue, particularly in some career technical education spaces. So we're thinking a lot about how we can support states with creating pathways that are more streamlined, but still rigorous. For example, allowing a teacher to earn a course-specific endorsement or permit for having gone through an approved professional learning experience. What's really cool is there's already a nice precedent for this work. A couple of examples that come to mind are Advanced Kentucky and Kentucky, CSEP, Computer Science Endorsement Pathway in Tennessee, are a couple programs where you are able to go through a streamlined professional learning experience and then are allowed to teach computer science. And so we're thinking about how can we take that, adapt it, broaden it, and ensure that teachers who are interested in these kinds of courses, who maybe aren't CTE certified but are academic certified, can step in and take that on. That work's especially important too when we think about the fact that a teacher's credential is often directly tied to the CTE funding. And some states have even gotten creative there. For example, Ohio has what they call an override, where if an academic teacher is teaching a CTE course, but they've gone through an approved professional learning experience, they are guaranteed to be able to use CTE funding. So that's another area we're thinking about. And then 2 other ones I'll name. The third one is around credentials themselves. I think there's a lot of policy energy around industry recognized credentials, specifically revisiting what the criteria are for a state approved IRC, ensuring there's a clear connection to workforce, ensuring that it is really a credential of value. So I think one state that is doing some interesting work in this space that I would name is Utah, who recently passed what they call its first credential policy, which basically consolidated some previous policies into one single statewide pathway that lets every high schooler in Utah earn an IRC or college transferable credit that's tied to a high demand job. And so as part of that work, they have established an oversight committee. They're going to create a master plan, and they're going to curate a master credential list that's weighted towards credentials that are tied to strong wages, stackability, regional demand. So Utah is one example, I think, of several states. I think there's maybe 25, 26, 27 states right now that already revalidate their lists from time to time. But I see that as a place where a lot of states are now kind of pausing and stepping back and thinking about how are we revisiting the list we currently have, but how are we putting infrastructure in place so we are regularly looking back and thinking about is this an in-demand position? Is this credential really a credential of value? And then lastly, I would name that, or I would encourage state leaders, higher ed leaders to think about pathways to college credit for these courses at both 2 and 4 year institutions. So as more advanced career relevant courses come on board, like Career Kickstart, it'll be important to limit friction as much as possible to ensure students receive college credit in addition to a credential, which again, I think is right in line with what we're hearing states want. States want their students to be able to get some post-secondary credit, and they want to be able to have them get a credential of value. AP Career Kickstart provides both, and so it's important that a college credit is a part of the equation. Yeah, I'll pause there, Terry, to toss it back to you.
Thank you. As a former CTE director, the first thing that popped in my head was finding teachers for courses, right? We struggle with any of the areas that someone could be making a little bit more money staying in the industry than coming to teach. So I love that you're already thinking about ways in which teachers could get add-on certifications, things like that, that they could be able to teach these courses. I want to, Stephen, send it to you because I know you've got that national lens as well. So what have you seen as some successes in states that have been able to, really build these career-aligned coursework platforms or avenues? And what can we learn from them, all of us sitting on this call today? Oh, you're muted. Hang on, Stephen.
Apologies. Yep. Thank you for that. I first have to kind of also reinforce that issue of the salary differential. A lot of our educators who are coming in are coming from business and industry in the career and technical space. And so, like you said, they may get paid twice as much when they're out in cybersecurity or 3 times as much. So it's really hard for institutions to be able to hire those individuals that have the content knowledge. So I think some of what we're seeing in states is thinking through flexibility on how that type of course delivery is offered. Sometimes you have the teacher who's on staff to really focus on the pedagogy and how students are taught, but then you bring industry professionals in to help with the content knowledge where you need that. It doesn't work in every case, but that's one idea. Our organization, ACTE, has worked with Advanced CTE, which is another group that works very closely with the state CT directors at the government level. And we do a report each year focused on year in review, where we look at state policies. And one of the biggest this year was the one that Diana saw as an answer in her poll today, which is the budget issues, the funding issues. And I think when you start to think about the issues of equipment costs, the teachers that we just mentioned, all the various things that come into play, that's a real issue for states and for local communities. Some of the specifics, I can tell you that in our year in review report that we did with Advanced CTE, we see a lot of states focused on work-based learning, dual and concurrent enrollment issues, like Troy mentioned. They're trying to identify ways that students can get that opportunity, as well as work-based learning directly when they go work with businesses and industry. And Diana mentioned the role of industry partners and how College Board is looking at that. I think that's such a critical part of what they're doing. We talk in we have a quality program of study framework that we talk about, which was evidence-based, that looks at what components need to be in place and what criteria needs to be in place in a CTE program. And that business and community partnerships role is one of those important 12 elements. So making sure that those business people are really discussing what the curriculum looks like, not just here's our curriculum, but how can they involved in helping identify that curriculum, et cetera. 3 other specific laws I have that I pulled up, just to give you an idea. Arkansas approved in 2025 Senate Bill 246, I believe it's 2025, which provides a one-time equipment grant to school districts that offer an accelerated learning course. So that's something that's obviously very relevant to what we're talking about today. Another state, Idaho, has their Advanced Opportunities Program, which allows students in grades 7 through 12 to request funding to cover dual enrollment and AP IB courses. And a third example is funding for CTE courses in Texas are weighted. And Dr. Conrad, I know you're in Texas, so hopefully this is accurate, but with more weight given to the higher level of CTE courses that are approved in the program of study. So there's definitely a focus on this type of advanced learning that students are taking, and I think supporting this type of connection between CTE and accelerated learning.
Yeah, spent the last 18 years in Texas, so appreciate the shout out. I think to your point there, there's state level policies, and then there's also district level policies that the people on the call might need to be thinking about as well. Because even if the state weights them, if your school division doesn't count those in your GPA, as we tend to see that a lot of CTE courses are not, that might be a discouraging way. People are not choosing to take a CTE course then because of it. In Texas, at least a lot of I could see several of these courses being included as math or science courses and getting those on in the course guides and at the state level so that they actually count in those areas as well and might encourage kids to take those. We've got a very engaged community adding questions in, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to that. We have quite a few questions that I'm going to kind of combine together, and they're all to this line of how can schools and school districts and even states use these new Career Kickstart courses or ones like it to really get students who might be underrepresented at the AP level, students of colors, women, children of poverty. How do we get those kids more involved in AP utilizing these courses, and maybe even kids that have actively been discouraged about taking AP courses in the past? And I'm going to throw that out there and see who wants to jump in first.
I can start. I have a few thoughts on this. So part of why we are spending so much time testing these courses is because we want to pilot this, right? Like we want to make sure that what is going out there is working, it's sticking, and it's working for all types of students in all types of backgrounds. So we've been doing a few things. So in terms of engaging students, to have this be their first AP course, we're really focusing on our messaging and working with our teachers and schools and districts and state communities and even people like school counselors, because school counselors are sometimes an audience that might not always be looked at, but they are highly influential in helping students understand that there's a great opportunity for you. You might not have considered it. Why don't you take a chance? So part of that excitement that we've been having has been communicating this value proposition to students of getting college credit and credentials of value. And that has been really, really highly received so far. So that is sort of one thing that we've been doing. Also, if we think about, I saw a few other questions in the Q&A section around how are we making sure we're bringing this to all types of students, right? Students with disabilities, students that might be in different economic poverty levels. And so as we've built our pilots, we've really worked hard to recruit teachers across the country who have experience working with students of divergent needs and abilities. I have one example that I can share. I don't know the exact city that this occurred in, but one of our networking teachers reached out to us and shared some feedback that they needed to adapt one of their networking lessons because we gave them a lesson that teachers can choose to use, and they were asking students to cut wires, and there was a student who could not use his or her hands to cut the wires and complete the task. And so if that's the situation, like how do we adopt and mold these courses? And that was new for us because we haven't been doing as much of that like hands-on project-based focus in other AP courses, and we've been taking that feedback very seriously. So really wanting to make sure that as we're piloting this over hundreds and hundreds of schools, we're doing it in a way that's representative of all students and their needs and meeting them where they are at. I don't know, Troy and Steve, if you want to add other things as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in there. I think those are all really great points, Diana. And I think for the work that we're doing, I kind of picture in my head, we have on one end, we have folks who are like, quote unquote, kind of the archetype of an AP student. So kids are just taking APs, taking a lot of APs. And the other side, we have kids, other side, down the hallway, we have folks who are taking CT classes, they're in programs of study. That's kind of where they're really investing their time and effort. I think we are trying to broadly reach more students in that middle part who we think who would be interested and could benefit. And we're passionate about reaching all students as much as possible. I will say one thing we can share out as a helpful link, I think, maybe post Terry, is an article that came out yesterday just around pre-calculus, AP pre-calculus, which is one of our relatively newer courses. That's now become one of our fastest growing courses and has really, we're really excited about students who have traditionally not taken AP courses are taking AP pre-calculus. And so I think we're hoping that can create some momentum similar for these courses, that we can broadly reach student demographics who may not have traditionally reached as well as we would like to.
Dr. Conrad, sorry, if I can add two more quick things that just came to my mind. So one thing is for these courses, there are no prerequisites. So it's not like you need to have gone through algebra, right, to be able to take these courses. Math is business is basic math. We can all do that math. And so these are built at an eighth grade reading and writing level and math level. And so students, there's not like another hurdle you need to jump through before you can take an AP Career Kickstart course. And then also, we are really engaging with employers, not just to endorse these courses for these industry recognized credential applications, but also how these employers can have a direct connection to students, whether it's through case studies or videos or students knowing that like this set of employers cares about early development, early talent. And that is a pretty powerful tool, I'm hoping, that really draws students in who might not have wanted to take these courses before. And Steve, I'm sorry, I think I might have cut you
Oh,
off.
no, I think I agree with everything you're saying. I think, states, I would encourage states to look at this issue as well and thinking about how do we get these programs into places where students who maybe have not had traditional access to AP, maybe they could think creatively about incentives. I know that some of the states are providing incentives, for instance, for industry that work with institutions on work-based learning opportunities. I think we need to get more of our students into those work-based learning opportunities, so that they really have the feel for how you apply these, what you're learning into the actual workforce. And I think that helps students to engage. So I think the more we can think about strategically, how do we get these programs to more of those students who just have traditionally not had access, we need to do that. It's something that we have to do.
Thank you all for that. I love hearing about the prereq side because that was my first thing that was popping in my head is that seems to be the unintended or sometimes intended consequence of some courses is that you end up it's still just the same AP students that are now you're just spreading them across more courses. And so I love to hear that these are at the eighth grade math and English levels that we're not already cutting off a group of our students there. So I know we have some other questions in here. Let me flip back up. So we were looking at, and just so you know, Diana, it's in the Q&A now is where people have put their ideas for areas of work for their regions. There's a question about, will there be opportunities for early childhood education? It's a high demand field, and we know that the focus is on high wage, but there's always a demand in that field. So any comment on just how we might be expanding beyond these initial first three courses, including early childhood education?
Yeah, I actually have a very soft place in my heart for early childhood education because in a prior life chapter of my life, I designed a co-working space with on-site childcare so that we didn't have particularly moms, but also dads, but moms on the sidelines, right? That moms that wanted to be working could work, and we would have really high quality care for infants and toddlers. And it was a really great concept. It ran for several years in San Francisco. It was called Next Kids. So I fully feel that demand in early childhood development and early childhood education, and the workers in that area work super hard and have incredible backgrounds in how to grow our earliest wonderful beings in the world. Um, the way that we've thought about this is really looking at the scale of where these demand gaps are and the numbers, and then combining them with wanting to have wages that are really exciting for students to want to get into. Another aspect that touches Troy and Steve's world, I'm sure, a lot is high school requirements. And so if there is a requirement for high school graduation, if there's a course that we can offer that gives students not just to meet their high school requirement, but also get college credit and get a credential and have it be high wages. So I think what we are doing at the process we're doing right now is taking all of the requests and everything that you guys are putting in the Q&A into account. So early childhood development would definitely go in there. I don't know that it would hit the mark on all of the things that we're looking at, but it is definitely a huge need in this country. Yeah, very aware of that. So thank you for suggesting that idea. I also saw some really great suggestions around finance and accounting, and this actually came up a few days ago of personal finance, tax, and accounting. We've seen a lot of interest from financial services firms that are very interested in supporting this because they realize that this is kind of key. And a lot of employers see the need for those skills because anyone that is more knowledgeable around personal finance is generally a more wealthy customer for any company out there. So it's definitely an area that's needed. And we're talking to CFA and CPA as well, because they are all trying to find enough people that will go into those tracks as well. So there's like so many places we could take these courses, and prioritizing them is the hard part, unfortunately.
Yeah. I know we've got a few more minutes, and I want to make sure we talk too about, because there are people on this call that are more on the business side here, and the community side. So we have a question about, are there avenues where public and private partnerships can help incentivize businesses to sponsor high school career education and training? Have any of you all seen that happen, or examples where that might have been a success to get those business partners on board?
I can share some, but I feel like I'm like diving in a lot on these. So I'll just share a few while Troy and Steve are thinking. We've seen this in a few different ways. So, Nissan in Tennessee has formed partnerships with high schools as well as community colleges because they were realizing in two of their plants that they didn't have enough talent with the right skills. And so they literally went to the high schools and said, like, we need you to teach these courses. And every time there was a barrier, they were like, we'll solve that. So when the barrier came up of like, well, we don't have enough qualified teachers. Like, okay, we'll work with your district and the state to make sure that we can have one of our employees teach it. And like, well, they need to be certified. Okay, we'll work and do that. Oh, we don't have enough funding for the team. Oh, we'll pay for that. So I think it really was on Nissan. It sounds like it was on Nissan to do a lot of the lifting. But they wanted it, right? They needed it so badly that they were ready and happy to do that with their K through 12 and community college partners. So that's one example. Um, I would say we are partnering with the US Chamber of Commerce on this, and they're helping us bring a lot of employers to the table. And a lot of the employers that are members of the Chamber of Commerce are also going through, the Chamber has a talent pathways program to really help, a lot of more focused on small, medium businesses, but helping those businesses understand asset like humans as the most valuable asset a company can have, and why it's important to invest in talent, and giving them some best practices on how to do that. And so through that, then partnering with these courses and with schools, they're able to do that more effectively. We're also partnering, and I don't know if I would call this like public-private partnership, but we are partnering with DECA and a bunch of the other business plan competition organizations, to make sure that our courses are aligned with what they want students to be doing in their international business plan competitions. And employers are actually very excited to be business plan judges in these competitions. And so through the work that we're doing with employers, we're providing employers with like really a platform to share what they most care about and how they want these skills to show up most, whether it's an advisor on our committee to advise us on our courses, or it's directly with students or directly with districts and schools. So those are a few ideas, and I would love to, Troy and Steve,
Yeah.
if you have others.
I would just say that sounds like an awesome idea. I mean, I think ultimately with our AP Career Kickstart courses, we are hoping to be a helpful addition to an ecosystem that already exists in many communities. And so ultimately, we want to make sure that students are getting real quality job experience, building that skill set. And so I think if a community had a partnership with a business, that could be, our courses could be, a feeder eventually to those industries, or into, for example, apprenticeships. I think someone mentioned apprenticeships in the Q&A as well. I love that idea. I think we're always trying to forge direct connections, as you can hear, around the content of our courses, and employers as much as possible. But if there's a direct connection in that community, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to build on what Diana said about, one of the things we see a lot in community colleges, but we see it also at the secondary level, is the donation of equipment from business and industry. And I'm talking about big, expensive pieces of equipment, such as the auto tech industry, where you spray paint cars. That's a multi-million-dollar or multi-thousand-dollar piece of equipment. So I think we need industry there more than we do. Nashville, she mentioned, and they have a great intermediary called Pencil that works in the Nashville area that kind of sits between education and business and tries to coordinate a lot of this. And other cities have started some of those intermediaries as well that work well. And we have actually within my own organization, we've started a coalition of trade associations to advise us about what else needs to be done so that we can support you better in bringing in these students into the industry, what types of policy changes need to take place, et cetera. So it's a big area of need. And I think there's our framework that I mentioned. I'll send a link to that, but that really does kind of outline some of the criteria that schools need to be thinking about. So when they have their business partners at the table, be thinking about how they can truly be meaningfully involved as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Just in my previous experience in the role in Texas, it's so important to have a collaborative and really good working relationship with your town mayor, the economic development board, because if you can get into these conversations as a school district when companies are choosing to come in and deciding whether they're going to come to your area, kind of to your Nissan point, Diana, then you can negotiate early on and start figuring out how both can work together. You come here and we'll work with you. Also, some arrangements that I've been aware of just Stephen, to your point, donated equipment, staffing, people that then are given, release time to actually come teach the courses, shared space so that they can do professional learning with their people in the space that you're having. So the more that you can build those collaborative relationships with the industries coming in and make it so that we're all trying to keep people in our communities together, I think is really important. I'm going to do one last 30-second question. If you all could look into your crystal ball and see what the future of CTE is going to look like down the road, what do you think the people on this call have to look forward to or think about? Stephen, we'll start with you.
Okay, I can start. Yeah, I think one important thing I didn't mention earlier is I think this is just as important for students who are kind of on the college track to get them more career development and exploration
Mhm.
and more focus. I will tell you one quick story. When I graduated, I clept all of my science and I never took any science in college because I didn't have enough career development and support, I think, to figure out those pathways. Not that it didn't work out. I'm very happy in my career. But I think as we look down the road, I think hopefully we're going to see a merging of academics and CTE where we're not going to have this divide as much. And I think it's already beginning, but hopefully 20, 30 years down the road, we won't even recognize those two components as separate.
I love that. Troy, how about you?
You stole my line. So I would
Oh,
totally agree. I think it's the right answer. I think we're going to see a lot of the breaking down of silos between academic and CTE. I think folks are more and more seeing the benefits of CTE. They're seeing the benefits of advanced coursework, and I think everyone recognizes there's compounding benefits when folks can access both simultaneously. And so I think that energy will continue, and we'll see more change in that regard.
love it.
Awesome. Very ditto to what everything all of you said. I think my vision is just more choice, right? That it isn't one or the other. Very small sidebar. This summer, we took my two children on a Bring Your Kids to Work summer. So we're flying home tonight. But for the past month, we've been traveling around the country with our daughters. And my daughters have come to many business meetings with me, talking to employers about these courses. And they've prepared, they've researched, they've asked questions of all the executives we've been meeting with. It's been honestly fabulous. They're 11 and 13, so it's a good age for that. but my daughter is very focused on college and she's going to go into high school next in a few weeks. And she's like, Mom, this is so helpful because now I know which courses I should take in high school to know what I think I might want to do when I grow up. And so I think this is really meant for everyone, as Steve said. And I think it's just all about more choice. So very excited. And Dr. Conrad, thank you for bringing us together today to talk about this important topic and for everyone participating.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation. And I want to thank the incredible panelists for joining me for this powerful conversation. Like I said, this recording will be posted to YouTube. So all of you who are on, please share it with your friends and colleagues so that they can learn about these programs as well. Before we close, I do want to flag a few upcoming K-12 webinars at the Hunt Institute. So you'll see those being posted up here, and you can still register for these events on our website. So we hope to see you on October 8th and November 13th for more conversations. Thank you again. And if you'll see the College Board question in the Q&A there chat, we've got Troy's email there. We saw Diana's at the beginning there. We go for syrup. I will not forget that at College Board as well. And then the high quality, the framework also Steve has posted there. And all of those links again will be when we post this on YouTube there as well. Thank you so much, panelists. We really appreciated the conversation and thank you everybody for joining us. Have a great day.